Okay, first of all, I'd like to welcome you all here today for our program. This is the second event of our Distinguished Speaker Series that's being promoted by the W. Walworth Harrison Public Library. And I would like to thank some folks that have worked extremely hard to make this happen. And the first person I'd like to thank is Sylvia Rodriguez here. She is our Adult Services Librarian and is working extremely hard to make this thing happen all week. Lisa Megenheimer is the person that created the beautiful display out in the back. I've been in and around libraries for 20 years, and that's one of the most beautiful displays I've ever seen. So she did a fantastic job. LaGina Jackson's here with us today helping out. I'd also like to thank a couple of our sponsors. The Greenville Corporation for Cultural Diversity partnered with us on that. We really appreciate that. Juice is here today to film this for us. Jason Scott is doing our sound. And I think finally I'd like to thank the other co-sponsors, the Friends of the Walworth Harrison Public Library. And I can tell you, Marcia here is getting ready to introduce our speakers. They just do a fantastic job for us. They truly are our friends, and we love to get together and do these kinds of things. So with that, I'll turn it over to Marcia Adams, the president of the Friends of the Library.
Ooh, applause. I hope I'm good. Can you see them? Okay, could my students please stand up and wave? All my students, stand up. Now wave at the show. Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. We will give you an opportunity to purchase the books later. And when you do come up, I want to point out a fantastic display here, courtesy. Was that Dallas Morning News that did that? Wonderful. Okay. Let me recognize a couple of folks. Betty Franklin. Where are you, Betty? There, she's waving at it. Okay. She's City Council. And Dan Perkins, both with cultural diversity. Thank you so much. Now, here's the teacher message. Take your cell phone out. Turn it off. Now, turn it off. If I hear it ring, I'll take it from you, and I'll give it back to you after my class. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. And I have fallen in love with Mr. and Mrs. Schiff. Would you adopt me? Could you just take one more kid? Yes? She says yes. All right, great. Thank you so much. It is my very great honor. I have goosebumps right now. We honor the dead by keeping their memory alive. So please join me in applauding Rosalie and William Schiff.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate immensely. Thank you for inviting me to your wonderful city, and thank you to be enough eager and to come over and listen to us a story of our life. Thank you very much. The Holocaust. I need this in my hand. I got it. The Holocaust, which overtook Jewish Russian, Gypsies, homosexuals, and Jehovah's Witnesses in people in a year from 1933 to 1945, was a powerfully historic and tragic episode for those people. 6 million Jews were brutally murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators, among them 1.5 million innocent children. The center of the world Jewry, which had lain for some 1,000 years in Central and Eastern Europe, was liquidated. The Holocaust changed the face of the Jewish people from numeral, graphical, cultural, and linguistic point of view. The unspeakable evil of of the tyranny of Hitler is not to describe. Hatred leads to destruction, as we all know. The Bible has been written for many years. In every religion it says, love thy neighbor as thyself. We hear this in Sunday school, right? Do we do that? No. Some people hate other people because of religion. Some hate because of color. Is this right? No. We are one race. We are the human race. Think about that. 50 million people perished from Hitler's regime. 50 million people. I don't know how they pulled this off until today. I was born in Krakow, Poland, some 16 years before the World War II. We lived close to the area in the Wisła River. My childhood was like a little girl's dream. My father was loving and attentive. My mother was devoted to her 3 children and her home. I had a little sister. Of course, everybody's gone. I'm the only survivor. I had a little sister, and I had a 7-year-old brother. All of them perished. I'm the only survivor. Our lives together were happy and full of love. Until September 1, the war broke out. September 6th, the Nazis invaded Krakow. There was less bombing on the site where we lived because across the street was a castle where all the Polish kings were laid to rest. However, during this week was much chaos among our Jewish men in the city. We had been told that the Nazis would capture our men, and many Jewish men were in flight from the city. So did my beloved father. The last words my extraordinary father spoke to me before he fled were, I don't know. I don't know where he perished. I don't know how he perished. I know when he left, my heart went completely with him. I did not want to live any longer because I loved my father so dearly. Why? Because he taught me a lot good, a lot of things that I used through my whole life. A lot of things left with me. He took a little suitcase and left. I don't even remember how he looked, and it bothers me many times so much. For many years I wasn't able to talk about him because he was the man in the house, the man that told us to give respect to everybody. The man told us that there were some good people in this world that I use later on, because there were some no good people in our world, right? Today too. I have tried to live up to his expectation of this wise man, the self-made man, who rose above his surrounding and yet always felt compelled that had to give back to it. The first stage of Nazi occupation involved the Germans engaging in the plundering the Jewish properties. We were immediately denied the benefits of Polish economy. The Germans started to confiscate jewelry, art, furs, bank book accounts, all kind of good things, clothing, but there were lot of poor people. The most Jewish people were poor in Poland. When he entered the poor house, they had a pair of pliers in their pockets, and they they told the people to open the mouth, and they pulled gold crowns from their mouth. This was very, very painful. Jews were captured on the streets. They were mutilated, tortured, and shot. Young girls were raped while their mothers had to force to look at it. Jewish synagogues and prayer books were burned to the ground while people were still inside of them. The more pious Jews, they were long beards. They were put on fire by their beards. They were praying, but somehow God did not hear them. They burned to crisp. Both men and women were made to wear yellow stars of David as means of identification. As far as food rationing was concerned, we received only a small ration of bread, nothing else. Jews were hunted, captured, kidnapped from their homes, and put to hard labor. Shortly, my beloved mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. A family doctor was forced to remove her breast with no anesthetics. I remember standing outside a small hospital or a room during the surgery. My siblings and I were holding hands and listening to our mother's screams. Thinking that we were full-fledged orphans already, while we stood and cried. It was at this same time that I met a young boy. Today's an old boy. He's an old boy. But I guess I'm going to keep him, should I? He was to help my family with hard times. Fragile and sick from her surgery, my mother was forced to leave Krakow with her 3 children. We were made to leave our home with very little belongings as we pulled the wagon outside Krakow. There we were locked up in one room without any food, without any means of supporting ourselves. My mother and younger sister, they were stricken with typhoid. Typhoid was a very contagious, terrible disease. Many thousands of people died of typhoid during the war. It was my friend's heroic heart that drove him to remove his Star of David by night and brought his new adopted family bits of food. Those efforts were truly acts of heroism, since such an act put my friend in life in dire jeopardy. If they would catch him, they would mutilate him or hang him or beat him to death. Those bits of nourishment provided, but was only a friend at this time, guided my mother and my little sister through the terrible bout of typhoid. My mother was not well. The doctor did not take out her stitches because they killed him before. Me and my sister had a pair of tweezers and we took the stitches the best we could, but she was very ill. The ghetto was fully formed by March 1941. We were moved to the ghetto. At very young age, I have seen hunger, destruction, and murder. Every day the streets were covered with blood, as well as corpses of men, women, and children. So when you went outside, you had to walk on top of the corpses in blood. Blood was running all over the streets. Our ghetto contained 320 very small apartments, where 19,000 people were living in unbelievable congested conditions. German guards stood at the gates leading to the ghetto, so no one could leave its confines. The crowded and unsanitary conditions caused the epidemic of typhoid, tuberculosis, and dysentery. I want you to visualize a small room with 3 or 4 families living together. children dying of hunger, old people dying of hunger. I remember the walls of the ghetto were built with our own hands, were shaped like tombstones, boding what was yet to come. I remember we lived in one small room without any windows. Many of my nightmares in beginning I had while I slept years later in my new home, America, took place in this room. During those rooms, I would have nightmares that I would be back in this room with my American children and grandchildren, still unable to escape the Nazis. Some years ago, we returned to Krakow to search for these rooms so I could get rid of these terrible nightmares. Though I was unable to find it, I still somehow know 100% that this room exists. After those particular nightmares subsided when we came back, but I had other nightmares. My friend was, my boyfriend was smuggling live chickens in the ghetto. He had a big coat that his mother sewed pockets in the back on the lining of the coat, and he put in every coat, in every pocket, not in every coat, but in every pocket, he put a chicken. What when chicken would make noise through the door, through the gate, he would be dead immediately. I remember one time he didn't come back on time. I was standing with his mother, very frightened because it was late already and dark. He didn't come back. His mother turned gray in one day. I never saw this by anybody else. But suddenly he showed up, he came back, and we cried, both of us. If not those chickens and other things that he smuggled, we would starve to death, both families. June 1, 1942, long time ago, right? But in my heart, this is very, very close date. The Germans started loading up trucks filled with many of my relatives, and my husband's parents went with this transport. They were taken to boxcar and transported to exterminating camp Belzec. Belzec was a death camp. The evacuation took many days. Old people hardly capable of walking, hospital patients, some people on crutches, crippled, were being led by others to the courtyard. For many days they had remained standing in the courtyard without any food or water. Hundreds of them collapsed from exhaustion and elements. Others were shot with machine guns. Now I'm going to tell you how I survived. We had to have authorized cards. We brought a lot of authorized cards from Poland, and I found a few pictures of my relatives in those cards. Cards were crucial. Without cards, we were sent to exterminating camps. My mother's sister, my brother, and myself, we were not working at this time because my mother was very sick. Work would keep our life from immediate jeopardy. I suddenly decided I saw through the window that people were standing in the lines. I didn't know why. I suddenly decided to take hold of my own destiny. I ran out and I stood in the line. The destiny turned as I when I stood in the line and guaranteed work or a journey to Belgium. It was at this moment that the young German Oskar Schindler, how many of you saw Schindler's List, a movie? He was a very handsome man. This is his real picture. He approached me. He was a womanizer and an alcoholic, but what a wonderful human being he was. He approached me, and elegantly dressed in beige hat, like here on this picture, and a beige suit. He approached me and he said, "You are too pretty for this line." What did I know where this line is going? They resettled us, they said. He took me out and put a stamp on my card. Meant that I have to stay in town. This authorization turned my fate away from Belzec and certain death. Schindler was a truly unexpected angel of mercy. I met his wife in Argentina. We found my husband's family in Argentina. So somebody told us that she lives here, and we took a taxi. We went to her house. They had to search us, police or I don't know. She did not speak Polish. She did not speak English. She spoke Spanish, and I'm not fluent in Spanish. So I interviewed her in German. This is her picture. This is Emily Schindler. I taped her. I have the tape in my house. She did not like her husband. How could she? He was a womanizer. But what a wonderful man he was. Many of us that were saved by Schindler bless him and always will bless him. I feel that he's a father to my children and my grandchildren, because when not Schindler, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you today. My family knew that they are going to be transferred by boxcar next day. My boyfriend wanted me to remain behind with him. My mother agreed that she would allow it, but only if he marries me first. He said he will. He promised he will marry me before. This was the most horrible night that I ever lived through in my life. My mother was crying, my sister was crying. My little brother came to me and he said, "I don't want to go, I want to stay with you." He was only 10 years old. I told him, "You can't because you don't have permission." And he said, "With whom am I going to play?" And he said, I started to cry. I embraced him, and I was very, very upset that he has to go. Early in the morning, the Nazis knocked violently on our door. They took out my mother, my sister, and my brother. Left me behind with a man who's today my husband. I never saw my mother and brother and sister again. They were killed in Belzec. One should like to live a little longer. We all want to live a day longer, right? How can any human being imagine that she or he would be forced to stark chamber naked and would be forced to breathe gas and agony? Many times I stay awake and I think to myself, How did they kill this wonderful mother of mine? She loved her children so much because she was deformed already. She had only one breast. Did they tease her? Did they talk oddly to her? She did not deserve that, but that's the way it was. I can't bring her back anymore, unfortunately. My husband and I were married within 2 weeks. With the Star of David on our arm, we said, I do. Very, very sad wedding, with no family members, with no parties, with nothing. We just said, I do. Miraculously, my little grandmother somehow managed to survive. She was wandering on the streets, was a little blonde lady with blue eyes. I took her to live with us. She was a treasure that I was constantly hiding from the Nazis. My grandmother was slowly starving. One day she turned to me and she said, my child, don't save me, I'm old. You are a child, you are young, you need to live. I said, no, you gonna live with me together. I embraced her, I started to cry, and I said, I love you so very much. I love you so very much. I ran out, I put her on the attic, covered her with papers. I ran out, and I told her I'd be back. I went to look for some bread. A piece of bread was hard to get, like $1 million today on the streets. Who had a piece of bread? Nobody. But I don't remember until today how I got this piece of bread. I ran home fast, and my grandma was gone from my life. When she was gone from my life, I didn't want to live any longer because she sometimes lied for me. She did a lot of things for me. She loved me so much, and I loved her so much. I was so close to her. I think today's children are not so close to the grandparents. But at this time we were very close to our grandparents. But how happy I am today that I told her I love you so much. I never told my parents that I loved them. How could I do something like that? How could I do not to tell them for their hard work, for their caring for us? But I never told them. They probably knew that I loved them. I want you to go home, all the youngsters in this room. Embrace your parents and your grandparents. Tell them every day how much you love them. Because what would you do? Did you sometimes think, what would you do without your parents? Right now we are at war, right? A lot of people die on the streets. A lot of people die from mischief. I want you to go home and embrace them and tell them, I love you, every day. Who puts food on the table? Who puts clothes on your backs? Your parents, right? Would you do that? Yes? Please, tell your parents you love them. Some young children were hiding in outhouses and in sewers. I didn't know what was going on. Soon afterwards, I witnessed something that made me lose faith in humanity. The Nazis liquidated a nearby orphanage. I saw children flung from the second and third story windows. Babies and tiny children were tossed in the air and used for target practice. They threw them down with their heads down. The brains splashed all over the place. Innocent babies were held by their legs and smashed against the brick wall. The Nazis laughed loudly as they made a river of blood, heaped with tiny parts of our young ones. I screamed and cried in terror and amaze. I went outside and I saw a river of blood running with tiny parts of our young ones, of our children. Did they deserve that? No, they did not deserve that. There were little arms, little legs, brain splashed all over, flowing on the streets. I screamed and cried. This was the worst thing I think I saw in Holocaust. And I want you to know, every day today that I don't speak is a lost day from my life. Because I speak for those tiny children, for those wonderful children that might grow up to be geniuses. I have to speak for the children. They could not speak for themselves. And I speak for all who died, all the nations, everybody in Holocaust. Because I'm alive, this is my duty to do. Yes, that's right. Somebody just said, yeah, little baby. As long as my eyes will be open, I will speak because I have to. God left me here to do my job. Next, I saw a Nazi stuck a knife in a pregnant woman's stomach. She just fell back. When I was pregnant with my oldest son, Austria, I always kept my hands on my stomach because I was afraid that somebody is going to kill my little baby. But thanks God, my son is 62 years old today. Very important part of my life. He's my life. And he built that beautiful Holocaust, the Holocaust Memorial in Dallas. He built and he paid for it too. So I'm very grateful that he remembers that he never forgotten that he was born there, that he was born in another town, another country. Instead of a honeymoon, my husband and I were transported to Plaszow concentration camp. Was a nice honeymoon, right? I was separated from him. I went with the ladies and he went with the men. Plaszow was built on 2 Jewish cemeteries surrounded by barbed wires. It was at this camp that my husband and I were exposed to the horrible Ammon Gad. He was a monster. He was a murderer. He was the guy that was shooting from the balcony. I was so afraid of him because he was a terrible person. He terrorized inmates with random of violence and murder. Gad was guilty of killing at least 22,000 people. 22,000 people. One human being could kill. He was a terrible human being. Gad was hung in Krakow on September 13, 1946, with no remorse, but the Nazis salute Heil Hitler. Do you know who uses the salute today? Skinheads. KKs, whatever they are. Those who saw Schindler's List know of this man's particular cruelty. One of his more gleeful amusements was setting vicious dogs on the prisoners while we walked to work. Much blood was drawn from the prisoner's arm for a sole purpose to make him weaker. This blood was drawn by unsanitary personnel with no training medical training. The blood was simply thrown away. One day, my aunt and my little cousin, my aunt with this little girl was brought to the camp. This little girl spoke with 3 languages because she was raised by a nanny. The nanny spoke with those 3 languages. She picked up her hands and she said, "Please don't kill me. I can peel potatoes in the kitchen." Get took a gun and put a bullet in her head. This is the only cousin that I know of how she died. She begged for life with the little small hands in the air. Escaped attempts were not tolerated. My husband was now smuggling food to me, knowing that every crumb he brought put him at risk being hung or mutilated or shot. My husband was forever the tiger of rescue. I didn't know so much hunger when he was around. There was a hill in a plaza where they used to shoot and hang people every day. Each morning greeted by new hosts of bodies hanging by their necks. One of my tasks was gathering and placing the dead in the wagons to be buried later. I never dared look at those faces for fear that I would find a familiar face. I had to do that because a gun was behind my back. One afternoon, my husband was brought back from his job in the factory. He has been charged with sabotage. Evidently, a farmer called him. The farmer was bidding on a young boy. He was a weak little boy. And he asked, "Why are you bidding on him?" "Because my husband said you are a dirty Jew." Such arrogance was punished by death. Later that evening, I learned that they took my husband back from work. The Nazis took him to the gate, where Gett was, the terrible murderer. This day he killed some people who brought bread about an hour before. They brought back bread from outside. He killed every one of them. The Gett was quite drunk when he heard of my husband's transgression. I would like to note here that through my husband could have escaped Gett's rape. It would mean 50 other people as a fee. If he would run away, my husband would be killed. And I was dead. They would kill me, his aunt and his sister and some little cousins. Luckily, my husband was blessed with a mere beating. For a while, he was not allowed to go outside, and he worked in the Schindler's factory. If he would run away dead, then the whole family would be killed. He would have to bury them himself. He worked on the Schindler's factory, but not for long. Soon afterwards, early in the morning, another boxcar came and transported me to Camp Skarżysko. Skarżysko was an ammunition camp. I was forced to the boxcar with other 120 inmates. I can't even tell you until today. When I see a boxcar, I shiver all over. This was such a terrible trip. Hungry, without food for 2-3 days. We were going and going. I wore a brown jacket and no socks, wooden shoes. In the freezing cold, we were loaded up like animals. The boxcar was so full there was only room to stand. I remember there were a few children crying, "Mommy, I'm hungry, I'm hungry." The mothers did not have anything else to feed them but their own urine, so they drank the urine of their parents. It was at this, though some prisoners appeared to be asleep, I soon realized that they were standing dead. It was in the same outfit that I survived, that served me for my freedom some years later, but not until I was exposed to much fear and lies. Later this evening, my husband returned from his labor and find out that his young bride was missing. In the wild and wounded frenzy, he threw himself to the first available transport he thought that would lead him to me. This transport, this boxcar, went to hell, to Auschwitz. I didn't know where he was for 2.5 years. We met after the war. I let my husband tell you the story.
Can you hear me now when I speak on this phone? Can you hear me? Well, she started telling about me. I just go pick up where she ended. I'm going to tell the story about it, how did it happen when they brought me for sabotage again. She was working in concentration camp, and I was going out to work in a needle factory. We were going out, I would say, about 18 young men. The youngest of us was about 18, the older one about 28, and I was then about 24. And one of these days I noticed when we were working in this needle factory, the man who was watching us, it was a Polak working for the German. He was telling on us everything we used to do. That he was hitting the youngest of one, who was 18 years old. And I just approached him and asked him a question, "Why are you hitting him?" And he said, "I hit him because he's a dirty Jew." And when he told me this, I told him, "You are a dirty Polak, and the German doesn't like you better than us. Why are you doing?" When I told him this, he hit me. And I told him again, "Don't try it with me, I'm not going to take it." Because usually I avoid problems. Because for every little thing they shoot you, you know. And he hit me again. When he hit me again, I hit him and we start fighting. He fell back. He didn't expect that I would hit him. Then the whole group joined us. We all started fighting. And the watchmen came in with guns. They were shooting in the air. I was lucky they were not shooting at us. What they did, they called upstairs the concentration camp, telling him about it. And they told him there, "Did any of you saw the movie Schindler's List? Did any of you saw the movie or you didn't?" You did. We were in this concentration camp, and I was going out each day to work. We were going out, like I said, 18 boys. And in this work, it's happened that the man started hitting the boy. And after I told him, he started hitting me. I jumped him, and he didn't expect it, and we all started fighting. If we're all starting fighting, they call upstairs, get which one was in charge to us. He was a murderer. And he told him, bring him for sabotage. Now, sabotage was death sentence. See, they picked us up, lined us up, And the Ukrainian who worked for the German, they were the people who were killing most of them when the German told them to. Lined us up to bring us back upstairs to the concentration camp. When we were going up, one of these men told me, "Look, Joe, give me everything you have and run." I said, "How can I run? I have upstairs my wife and with kids. My sister was there still left. And I have an experiment before that it's happened that one of the people escaped. After he escaped, they took the whole, from the group who went out and came from work, they took the whole group, lined them up, called the family of these people. They make an appeal of the whole concentration camp, make the family dig a big hole, and then the Ukrainian light them up on front of this hole and shoot them, and the family has to bury them. And there were about around 40, 50 people, I don't exactly remember. And I remembered it. And I told him, this is the reason I cannot escape. If I escape, they will kill everybody. 50 people from us, but everybody from my family. And he told me like this, what's the difference? You will never get out there alive. At least you have a chance, save yourself. And I said, I cannot do it. He said, they go kill him anyway. I said, and if you come up, they go kill you. You know it, for sabotage. And I said, I know it, but I couldn't stand it, that they have to die because I escaped. And I went up. We came all group up. Well, I survived really. I was lucky because before they brought us upstairs, but a half hour before another group came, and their group was maybe 40 or 50 people. And they cut a half of them smuggling food for the family. They took them all, lined them up, called the Ukrainian, which were doing the shooting, took the family, make them dig a hole, and the Ukrainian shoot them, and the family has to bury them. After all this thing, and they brought us, but I would say a half hour later it was, right? After they brought us up, he looked on us and said, no, they're young boys. Beat them up and don't let them out. I was lucky. I was just plain lucky. That was first time it's happened that they didn't kill anybody for smoking. And then it's happened 2 days later, and get picked up, it's the man who was in charge there. 6 people. We have a little attic in this concentration camp. They lined us up there, but with a distance of about 10 feet, one from each other. And they told us, the gate will come to salute and not to make a mistake, and don't show him that you're scared of him, because if you show him that you're scared of him, he's going to shoot us. Well, we're standing there about a half hour, there was 6 of us. I was 13 row. And he came upstairs, he went to the first one. When he approached him, the man got scared and showed him that he's scared and didn't salute proper, he shot him. Same thing happened with the second one. I was the third one. Well, I was just like everybody else. I got scared, and he noticed it. Well, like I said, I was just plain lucky. Each time something happened, I was lucky. He just passed me, went to the 4th one, shoot him, then the 5th one, shoot him, and the 6th one, he just let go and walked down. And this way, after this day, when I came down past another about 3-4 days, we were still not going up to work anymore. And I work for Schindler. You heard about Schindler, who saved maybe over 100 people after that. I worked for him in this factory. And the factory was in a different corner where my wife Rosalie used to live. And I didn't know what has happened when I was working. And one day I came from work and noticed that they sent the transport and took her on this transport. And I got wild. I jumped on everybody. I didn't care anymore because I didn't have anybody else there. Just my sister left, and everybody was already killed. I started jumping on everybody. And what's happened, there were two watchmen by the door. I jumped in with the guns. I jumped in. And two men helped us. Well, like I said, I was always lucky whatever's happened. I remember I was hidden with a gun over the head with one of these watchmen and taken to my barrack where I was sleeping. In 2 days I found out that the other two who tried to help me, they shoot too. Like I said, I was just having luck. Then I still start looking for ways to find out what's happened to her. Try to help me find out where she went. And notice that at transport, they selling some different kind. I jumped to the train to this transport, not knowing where the transport is going. And this was my mistake. I could be very easy in this war by Schindler, but because I jumped to this transport, the transport went to Auschwitz. Auschwitz was the death concentration camp. You know, Auschwitz has thousands of people. I would say to after war, after we looked on it, maybe 0.5% of these people survived, and I was one of them. How I survived, let me explain to you. When they brought me to Auschwitz, they took us a front on, they took me separate. When they brought us to Auschwitz, we were on this wagon, I would say 12 people, young people, too young in 20s. They took us downstairs to a shower. They took our clothes off, shaved the whole body, showered us, and put a tattoo on left arm, which one I have. I'll show you the tattoo later. And then took me separate from the whole group to a different barrack. Where they took the other 12 boys, I don't know. I was not really a boy there. I was ready then when I was in Auschwitz. I was already 23 years old, or 24 practically. They took me to a barrack. This barrack has an appeal on front where they were going to all the people which lived in the barrack. What they did, they lined them up in one line. And I was in this line too when they brought me there to this barrack. And the assessment was standing with his finger showing left and right. I would say bigger half went left and the smaller half went right. I was lucky I went right. Why? When they brought us there, they took the shirt off and they look on the body. And I have a huge chest, and that's what made them send me to the right. And when they took us, the people they went right, they took us back in barrack. The people they went then they disappeared. Then we found out later they took them to crematorium and they killed them. Now they brought us to this barrack, and each day they were bringing some new people because the barrack was almost half empty each day when they made this selection. They give me a place where I could sleep. Well, the man in charge there was a professional gangster, which one was a master of life and death. You know, whom he didn't like, for instance, like when they took a half group and brought another half, whom his list in this barrack should be 98 people, no more. When it was more than 98, he beat him to death, whomever he liked, especially he has eye on Jewish people. And when I got in there, I found out about it. I was scared, let him know, this man, that I am there, he's living with him in this barrack. And kind of start avoiding him, that he doesn't know about it, that I was there. I remember they made this kind, after 2-3 days, each day they took us out, brought new people, then segregated again, and sent me back in barrack. When I went in barrack, second day, my place, somebody was sleeping on it. Well, I didn't want to start arguments, because if I would start arguments, the man would find out what's happening, would pick up on me right now, maybe kill me next day. And I tried to avoid it. This way I spent 3 days. In 3 days, they took a group, they called out a group of 12, 14 people. They take us to work what we're supposed to work on. We were walking from Auschwitz to Birkenau. Birkenau was a part of Auschwitz where they have a laboratory where, what was his name? Dr. Mengele. Did you hear about him? Mengele, where they made experiments on people. And they took me to this laboratory. When I came to this laboratory, they introduced me to a physician named Dr. Meisel. He was too Jewish and he was a prisoner in Germans' hands. They forced him there to create syrup to cure diseases. And each time he made any of this syrup, they tried it on human beings, you know, the same way they do it today, but they try them on animals. But they tried it on human beings. And they brought me there to be a guinea pig. I remember when I met Dr. Meisel, he was Jewish too, he took a like to me, he liked me. Especially he liked me because he just said he has 3 children, and all the 3 children are girls. And he would like to have a son. And right now made up with me that if we live through this war, he's going to take me with him to his house to be his son. Well, I didn't know what to say on it. I didn't say anything. And didn't tell me why they brought me there. It just happened, but second day when I was there, he told me about it, that he just finished a syrup and he has to try it out. And he has to try it on me. I'm supposed to be the guinea pig. But he said, I am going to talk to the assessment who's in charge here to see. And I try to convince him that I need you here. Maybe he's going to take somebody else. But I remember when the assessment came in and he told him, he just took a gun, put in his head and said, just try this syrup on him or you both go. Well, he didn't have choices. And tried the syrup, and like I said, from first day I came to Auschwitz, I was lucky, just plain lucky. The syrup was good. But my luck continued. How it continued, his assistant got sick in 2 days. Again. And he came to me and told me, look, William, I told him that you'll be my assistant now. And I said, how could you tell him this? I don't know nothing about this chemical thing. I was never in school studying things like this. But in fact, I never reached college. I was too young. And he said, well, we can change it now. I told him. And if you not go do what I tell you, they're going to shoot us both. Then I asked him a question, what I'm going to do when they ask me a question about something. He said, if they ask you a question, when I say, with the head, I shake my head down, say yes. When I shake the head sideways, say no. And that's what I did. They brought 2 days later a young boy on my place. He was a Russian. The boy was not even, I think, maybe around 16 years old. And they tried the syrup on him. Organs of people that I can even explain to you what they did, everything with people, how they were changing it. This way passed by me certain time, but I still have the problem in the barrack. Already passed, I would say, over 2 weeks when I was in Auschwitz. I have still problem with this guy. I was scared to show him that I was there. Because if he would find out that I'm Jewish, he would kill me. And I told Dr. Meisel about it. And he said, why I told him about it? Because I noticed that they have a garage in this laboratory where they bringing food for the people working there, and that they loading meat too. And I asked Dr. Meisel, I used to love bicycles. I used to skate on bicycles. I used to race on bicycles. And I told him I know bicycles. If I know bicycles, I maybe can be in garage working something. But he said, you don't know much about motors. I said, well, I can try. And I asked him to transfer me to the garage. And he said, you crazy. Why would you do things like this? If you work with me, you, in a way, be kind of safe. Because how long they will need you, they will not touch you. Maybe we both can survive this way. And I told him, yes, I may can, but I have a problem in Barak. The men still don't know that I am here, and he is going to find out I am here. I am there. He's going to kill me. Already 2 weeks passed, and I didn't report it to him that I am in his Barak. And he agreed to it that he's going to talk to them about it. But this time, like I said, all the time I was lucky. He talked to them about it this time, and they agreed to transfer me in garage. And it's happened that in garage they need somebody. They transfer me in garage, to garage. In garage we were working 3 people. I was the youngest one. I was then around 24. And then I was lucky. I have 2 people, they have familiar language there. I was born and raised in Poland. I spoke Polish. And the other one was Ukrainian. Ukrainian is kind of familiar like Polish language. And he was somewhere in 30s. And the third one was a Russian. But the Russian was an older man. Why they have him there, I don't know. And he spoke Russian. And all the 3 languages are familiar, are all Slavic languages. And I think that I can converse with them. And then I decided, when I start working there, that I'd be going in barrage and tell this man about it, that I am with him, that I have idea, something to do. Because I noticed that they bring this meat in laboratory, in this garage for the laboratory. When I came to him and told him about it, who I am, he got mad. He had that pickup, hit me, and started getting mad, pulled the gun on me. And I told him, why don't you just listen to me? I have a good deal for you. When he heard a good deal, he said, well, okay, tell me what you have in mind. And I told him that I can smuggle from laboratory meat for you to the barrack. And he looked at me, wouldn't believe it, and asked me, how can you do it? And I told him, how can I do it? I have idea. Now let me explain you what the idea was about it. It's kind of funny, but that's the way it happened. In concentration camp, we don't wear nothing more than 2 pieces of cloth. A jacket was like a shirt, and a pants like jacket, nothing just like a thin. And this time in January in Poland was cold, was freezing, was the coldest months in Poland. It's January. And for instance, he lived like a king. He has his own corner where he lived. He has his own table where he sits. He has men who work for him in garage, in barrack. Even the men who work for him, they didn't have to go each day for this appeal. They, from this appeal, half of them came back, half were taken to crematory. And I told him to sew me off little pants, a little underwear. You see, we didn't wear underwear. I don't know how to explain to you. I told him to sew me off underwear with double bottom. I don't know how to explain you difference. And he in the beginning couldn't believe that it's possible and started laughing about it. And then he said, okay, go ahead, try it. But you know what's happened if you don't make it. I said, I know. And that's what I started doing it. When they took us, you see, when they were taking us to concentration camp, from concentration camp to laboratory, they were not checking us, but they were checking us in laboratory. Now, when they were bringing us from laboratory back to the barrack, they didn't check us in laboratory, but they were checking us going back to the barrack. And I know about it. the season I told him to sew me of this kind underwear. And he did, and I started smoking meat. And meanwhile, in Barak was same thing. For instance, when I start bringing him meat, I have a better life. Like I said, first time I took it, and they didn't check me in laboratory, but they were checking in when I came to the Barak, and they didn't cut me, and I brought it into him. And from this time, I don't have to go out anymore for appeals, because I was his man. He always backed up me that I am working for him. The people, for instance, when we were going out for appeal, the people who worked for him, they count them off to make sure that nobody is missing. And he said, one was his tailor, one was his cook, whatever, one was cleaning there for him, his barrack. And I was bringing him this meat. This means we didn't go out. We stayed in barrack. This is the reason I saved myself. I didn't have to go through these appeals each day, where one of these days they could pick me up and I would never come back. And laboratory life was going on like before. People were coming and going and sending to crematorium. Killing was going on. This way I passed with me almost a year, and I was never caught. I used to do it each day. I was never caught that I was smoking it. And the worst thing came, let me go back to January 1945. They stopped evacuating our barrack. Well, everybody, when they start evacuating, people, when they're hungry, they offer for anything. And everybody was looking for themselves. Besides, Europe is just like United States. Just in United States, it's 52 states who have one language. Europe, which one half Europe was Russia, but another half Europe were about 30 states, but each state was a country. And each country has a different language. And you know, there were so many languages you didn't understood. Most of the people, you couldn't even speak to them because they have different languages you didn't understand. And that's the way time was passing by there. Now, like I said, in January, past the worst thing, they started evacuating. They said that the Russians are coming. They started evacuating. Everybody was looking for food, any kind of food they could. I didn't. I was thinking about it, how to save myself from this cold weather. Each one of the prisoners has one blanket when we were in this barrack. Everybody was, like I said, looking for food and leaving the blankets. I grabbed 3 blankets with me. My blankets grabbed another 2 blankets which were left. When they took us to the wagon, there were cattle wagons. You know, the same wagons what they used to move sheep here in United States Western. Open wagons on top, but closed all around and top open. They took us to my wagon, over 120 people they loaded us, but whoever complained they couldn't walk or feel good or look too skinny or look too old, they shoot him. They were shooting all the time. For instance, I would say the half barrack they shoot before the other half got in the wagon. In my wagon, we got in about over 100 or 110 people. Whoever complained, they shot them anyway. The wagon, they were sitting in corners, 2 watchmen. They were German with guns. In middle wagon, 2 watchmen, and in other corner, 2 watchmen. And whoever complained, they shoot them. They shoot them. They were shooting people all the time. All the time you hear shooting. Well, when they put me in wagon, I located myself in one corner. And what I did, I took my shoes off, covered my shoes with one blanket put around my body, and the 3rd blanket over my head. And that's all I hear is just shooting. The wagons start moving. They were moving very slow because the aliens were bombarded. And they were moving the wagon very slow from Auschwitz. I remember first day I start feeling, all the time when the wagon was moving, I hear shooting. When I was staying in the wagon cover, there is more and more place. I picked up the blanket to look around what's happening. The wagon was second day half empty. You could really sit down. Third day you could really sleep on floor, and this was the day when we arrived in Grossrosen. That's the place they were taking us. From my wagon they took out just 4 of us. The rest they killed. And I was one of them. I said I was lucky. I don't know how that happened, but that's the way it happened. And then when they took us out, all 4 of us, 2 of us have frozen feet to their shoes. They couldn't take off the shoes. Now, what's happened to these 2 guys, I don't know, because 4 of us, they took each one to a different barrack. And what's happened with the other 3, I don't know. In these barracks, we didn't work anymore. They were taking us out early in the morning, but not so early, 10 o'clock in the morning. And we used to stay on this cold weather outside, hungry. They were giving us just a small piece of bread once a day and water. And we stayed there like this till 5 o'clock, and then 5 o'clock back in barrack. This way passed over a week. And I decided, well, everything is a little upside down. People they don't know Germany what's happening. And I am sick and tired living like a dog anymore. And I couldn't take it. I tried to escape. And then the mind came to my mind when once I was walking outside in the concentration camp, I noticed a hole in the barbed wire. And the wire was electrified. And I noticed a small hole, and I figured out if I can dig in a little, I can pass. And what I decided one night, 2-3 nights later, I found a piece of wood, which when I figured out I can dig this hole, and just on my own, by myself, not telling anybody, I sneak out at night and start going in direction to this hole. Now, concentration camp has light where they were watching and moving the light all night. Took me over a half hour until I reached the point because of the light. I have to avoid lights. And then I was lucky again. When I came to the corner, the lights were not shining in this corner. I have to decide which way I am go out. I decided I am go out on my back with my face up, because I have to see that I don't touch the wires when I move out. I took me another while to dig this hole, and like I said, I was lucky the lights were not coming there. And when I decided that the hole is good enough, I lay down on my back and crawl out, not touching the wire, and I was lucky I made it. Well, this was deep in Germany, in Grossrosen. Grossrosen is deep in Germany. I was in this uniform with a uniform from prison, from concentration camp, with the sign that I was Jewish, which wasn't good for me, because if you're Jewish, you shouldn't live. Start running. I was scared of everybody because everybody was German. I was speaking German fluently, but I was scared talking to them because of this uniform. They will know right away who I am because of this sign. It was so low. I couldn't even take it off. It was so hard, so low. I was running day and night, trying to avoid people. And second night, I was so weak that I couldn't run anymore. Besides, I didn't need anything, day and night. I decided when I get to a small country, I walk into a German home. Maybe there are some German are good. They're speaking fluently German. I can talk to them about it. And this is what I did. I knocked at night in this door, and the older lady opened the door. And she saw me, she got scared. Then she saw the sign that I have the Jewish Star of David. Well, she stopped and she came to me, started talking. I thought maybe she has some mercy, I don't know. And we talked about it, and she said, you escaped from this and this concentration camp. Yeah, yes, because you were there because you're Jewish. I said, yes. And why did you stop there? I said, I'm hungry. I can't walk anymore. And she said, let me talk to my husband. Well, when she told me this, I was kind of scared. Maybe she's going to call police on me. But I didn't have choices. I waited, and her husband came out. It took a while before she came out. I was kind of scared, but they both came out, and he was nice to me. And because I spoke German, they talked to me. They started telling me that they helped me. But he has the idea for give me some food, bread, water. She even made me some coffee. And then have idea for me to go sleep, because I told them I didn't sleep already 2 days and 2 nights. And when I went sleep, well, I told the nice people, have a lady, the police woke me up. And from the talking to each other, I noticed that they called police on me because I spoke German fluently. Police picked me up, took me in a car, took them maybe 1 hour to get back there, 2 days, nights what I was running. And all the way in back, they spit on me, they kicked me, they pushed me around, treat me like a dog. Beat me, I have black face, black eye, beat me awful. When they brought me there, they brought me to the barrack and put me in the barrack where I was before. The next day, they took me out. I was beaten ready by them when I came out. Made the appeal, put me by the wall, take my top clothes off, turn me with my face to the wall, bend my hands, and beat me with pages until I fainted. Then they put me back in barrack. Well, they left me in barrack 2-3 days, and not until they came again for me to start going out. I couldn't too much doing, but I did. After I went out, they again made the appeal. And took all people together to watch us, all prisoners together, watch us what they go do to me. And they give me a shovel, and on front this barrack, the people are behind it, make me dig a hole. The hole was about around 6 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 3 feet deep. Well, it took me hours before I dig this hole. They were standing all the time, kicking on me, beating on me, they're spitting on me all the time. Well, I don't know how I made it, but I did. And you couldn't do, because if I sometimes jumped, they were shooting in air. I was scared they go shoot me. Well, when I finished, they bent my hands, my feet, and put me in this hole and covered me with 2 boards. I could barely see through them. Keep me there again. I remember 2 nights. I hear him talk. After 2 nights, I was still alive. I remember the insect eating me. Started eating me up. I couldn't get it. And then I was scared, hit with the hand on a board. When I hit the board, they maybe shoot through it to me. I was in awful condition. But I was still alive. After 2 nights, they took me out and told the people, now you see what's happened when you try to escape. And took put loose my feet, hand, and they took me in barrack again. In this barrack, and let me stay in barrack again 4 or 5 days, and each day they checked if I feel better. Well, I made it, I started eating and I made it. I was much slower than I used to be. It was hard on me, everything was hurting me, but I didn't have choices. They were pushing, they were kicking. And they're telling me again outside. And I decided, no, I'm not going to live like this. And I said, I'm going to run again. But where will I run? How will I run? I didn't care if they catch me, shoot me, because live like a dog, it's better be shot. The next night, when everything was upside down, because they were expecting the Russian maybe came, Maybe they have to evacuate again. Again in night I moved away when nobody was watching. But I went opposite direction in the concentration camp. I didn't have idea how I can escape, but I run. And I noticed the wagon, commercial wagon standing there, but the wagon were covered. Well, I didn't have a way how to leave this concentration camp because there were barbed wire. If I would touch a wire, it would kill me. And then the watchmen were watching day and night. They have lights at night. I just made it to one of these. I just made it that they didn't see me at night. This was a night. I made it to the wagon, walked in a wagon, and I just have an idea. Maybe they moved on a wagon. Then I'd be lucky. I can escape this way. But well, my tough luck. Same day when this night when I escaped, I stayed there over a day. Next day they start evacuating this concentration camp. They said that the Russians are coming ready. And they have to evacuate us. They start to evacuating again. Well, I didn't have a way out. I kind of sneaked out the wagon and joined the group to the wagon where they go move us. This time they were moving us in open wagons from Grossrosen. Well, there were many times ways when we were going in this wagon, open wagon, I could slip out, but I couldn't walk anymore. How could I escape? It was hard for me to walk. I was so beaten and so tortured and not eating all these days and nights that I couldn't even, hard for me to walk. When they put me on this wagon, I remember a little boy. There was a Hungarian boy. The boy was 10 years old. They was giving us a piece of bread. They give him his piece, he eat it and grab my piece. And I didn't have enough power to stop him. You know, people were white. Everybody took it for himself. They didn't care who to die as long as they have, food. And this transport went to Buchenwald. And in a way I saw people when they're hungry, whoever died, they used to take piece of meat from dead bodies and eating. It's awful. Awful what people can do when they're hungry. It's worse than animals. And this way we arrived again in 2 days and a night. In 2 days we arrived in Buchenwald. In Buchenwald we still didn't do anything. You see, I could barely walk. I have to, each thing was something wrong. I have to sneak out that they don't catch me, that I'm with, because if they would notice that I'm with, they would shoot me. I remember when I arrived in Buchenwald, first day, I looked good. And I spoke German. They came to me and offered me to die giving soup to people on one couch. And they voted to me that I will divide it between everybody. But I couldn't make it. I was not strong enough. But they took it away next day from me. And 2 days later, one of my relatives come to me that he found out that I have more soup. That if I could give him soup, he has 3 coats. He could give me one if I give him soup. And I said, well, I wish I could have given you. First thing, I couldn't get away from other people to give it to you. But maybe I could help you some ways, but I don't have it anymore. I'm sick. He left me, walked out on me. Then I remember, this is not everybody is bad. Another boy who liked me came. He was sitting by my feet and wanted to help me best way he could. 2 days later, he disappeared. I don't know what's happened to him. Then I remember this story I have to tell you, not everybody is back. I met one of the people they working with me in this laboratory. He was a scientist. The man was, I was then already middle, 25 years old. And he was almost 40. He was a big guy. I was about 5'11" tall then, and he was over 6 feet, or 6'2", huge big guy, heavy guy. And we became friends. That's all he was talking is about food, how we're going to save ourselves. And one day he came to me and told me, you know, William, we have to have a way to save ourselves that we don't die hungry. when we get the bread, we divide it in 3 pieces. You know, the bread, if you divide it in 3 pieces, it was just 1 piece, the mouth. We divided in 3 pieces, 1 for breakfast, 1 for lunch, 1 for dinner. And I agree with him, we're going to do it. And I remember next day we tried it. We started in morning. I took the first piece and he took the first piece. Then I took the second, then I could wait. Hour later I grabbed the second piece, and then hour later again the third piece I eat. When lunch came, I had eat up all 3 pieces, and he started eating his second piece bread. So I don't know how it's happened. My eyes must be popping out on him when he was eating it. He took the third piece of his bread he had. He was a big, heavy guy, twice heavy than he weighed, maybe 250 pounds, I don't know, big, heavy guy, 6 foot tall. And his life depended on this piece bread. He took his third piece, what he has for dinner, want to give me because I was looking on him. And I wouldn't take it. You see, they are good people too. And his life depended on it, but he tries to give me. And I wouldn't take it. And I remember I was with him several days. That's all he was talking about food. Then one day he disappeared. I was alone. Then I was in Grossrosen this way about 3 or 4 weeks. They start talking about it, that the English or the American are coming. And a day later they start evacuating the concentration camp, because we hear a lot of shooting coming to the concentration camp. They start evacuating again. Well, I know that if the German notice me, he go immediately shoot me. I just try to crawl out from the barrack that nobody sees me. He went into the barrack and stay in this barrack two nights and 3 days, and I hear a lot of shooting. And after the 3rd day, the shooting, I felt that I'm dying, that I couldn't even move hand or feet. I couldn't move my body at all. I was so weak. I decided, and then I hear a strange voice. Can you imagine? English was a strange voice to me. And I decided I'm going to call for help. And called for help. American soldier took me out. How they got there, I don't even know. When they took me out, they put me on scale. I mean, 3 days later, shooting stopped, and I asked for help. I called for help. A soldier took me out. They put me on scale. I weighed 69 pounds. I was 5'11" tall. My average weight was 180 pounds. You can imagine how skinny I was. Well, what's happened, there were many prisoners which they freed to them. People, like I said, when they're hungry, they worse than animals. American gives us good food. People throw themselves food in. I would say 55% of us die from overeating. In my luck, they tried to push food in me, I couldn't eat. Took but almost 8 days. They were feeding me on to my veins with shots. And then 8 days later, I start pouring food on me, and I start eating systematically. And about till 2 weeks, I start walking. And then 3rd week, I kind of blow up. I didn't have power enough, but I blowed up. And I decided I'm going back home. This war was over. You want to talk now again? Or you want me to talk about it? I went home. What? Can I hear you? I can hear you. I said that they free us from concentration camp, and I decided to go home. Oh, let me tell you, Pastor. Yeah, let me tell you one more thing. She's right. I decided to go home. And what's happened, when I was packing, I came to myself, I blow up, I didn't have enough strength afterward to go home. Dr. Meisel was returned, Buchenwald, and I met him. He was so glad that he met me, and he tries to take me with him, that he's going to take me with him. I go with him to his house, I be his son. And I told him, Doctor, I'm glad I met you again. We can be friends again, but gosh, I can't go with you. I have to go home to my family, but they may be killed, maybe not alive, but I can still go with you, even they wouldn't be. Why? And he said, well, you want me to be your son, you want me married to your daughter. I am married. And he asked me, why did you tell me? I said, well, you never asked me, we never talked about it. It was war. Okay, who talked about things like this? Then he decided he's going with me to Krakow to find out if my wife is alive. And I remember I met then a girl. She was in concentration when we went on train. When we were on train, I met a girl there, and she joined our group. Then another man joined our group. It was me, Dr. Meisel, and one man and one girl. We were going back home on train. To get home, you see, I was free. Germany was divided in 4 zones. Germany was divided, American zone, French zone, Russian zone, and English part. Now, I was freed by the American. Then I was freed on a part of Germany where the Americans were in charge. But to go back home, I have to go to the part occupied by the Russians, because Poland was occupied by the Russians then, after the war, before they established everything. And I remember we went on train. When we passed American zone, came on Russian side, we're supposed to go through a mountain to Breslau, which one is a German city occupied by the German city occupied by the Russian. A Germans start coming into the same wagon. The ex-prisoners decided that each German who comes in, they take revenge of him. First thing, they put signs on trains, same like the German. German put signs, Russian, Jews and dogs out. They put a sign, German and dogs out. The Russian. And when we were in train, they stopped in one station. 2 German women came in. And I dream all this time, when I ever get out, any German I put my hands on, I kill him. I take revenge for my parents, for my whole family. See, I have a family, like from my mother's side, was a family of 7 children. When my mother was the older one, and she has the oldest kids. This means from my generation, I was the older one. I have cousins. I was already 20 when the war came. My cousins were teenagers or children or babies, and they killed them all. And I was raised with it. They were looking up to me because I was already a grown-up boy. And I have dream about revenge. And they killed them all. And I remember when these 2 women came in, they decided that we're supposed to go now to top mountains. And when we reached the top of the mountains, they take the 2 women and they throw them out from train. The 2 women were, I figure out later, find out that was a mother and a daughter. One was about around 50, before 50, less than 50 years old, and the other one was a teenager, a young girl. She was her daughter. And I remember when we came to the mountains, they grabbed him and opened the window, tried to throw him out. The women became hysteric. Would you believe I couldn't stand it? I jumped him. I wouldn't let him do it. I just have forgotten they were German. I saw 2 women in trouble. And Dr. Meisel helped me, the other guy helped me, and we stopped him. After we stopped him, they kept us there until we reached Breslau. When we came to Breslau, they threw the German out and threw me out. I remember I was sitting outside, And the German woman came to me and started thanking me for saving her life. Then I was sitting and asking myself, why did I do it? You see, I just couldn't kill. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't kill just a woman and kill her just to kill her. It wasn't war anymore. And I told her, you know, do me a favor. Get your daughter a room because I may change you my mind. And she got her and went away. And I remember that there was another story. I was walking there, met another girl. And she approached me. She came too from concentration camp. Then we start talking. I told her I just came from Buchenwald. She has an idea. She met a Russian officer who likes her. And she told me she's going to introduce me that I'm her brother. And he's going to give us a place to stay. I was sick. I couldn't move anymore. I didn't feel good. So what he did, he took us to downtown Breslau, took to a beautiful 3-story villa, give the German 30 minutes time to move. And I remember when they were taking them out, the Germans start complaining to some of our people coming there because I was coming there, Dr. Meisel, there were 2 girls, 2 other girls, then another, some people came with us. How can you throw us out with children? So the people told them like that, you're lucky you have children because our children you killed. And I just didn't say anything, but I couldn't kill, I couldn't hurt anybody. I remember Russian officers used to come to us, you shouldn't do anything, Ringwit is out to do whatever we want to. I remember one of the prisoners came to a German and told him take the ring off. So he showed him that he cannot take it off. He told him in German to the other guy, give me a knife, we cut it off with a finger. He took it off first and gave him, but I just couldn't do things like this. I just couldn't do things like this. And they took revenge of it. Now, we came to this villa, we stayed in this villa about a week. Then the governor came and told me to report it that I owned the villa because I was first put there. And I said, I don't want the villa, I don't want anything, I just want to go home and find my family. And I decided I left everything and I packed that I'm going home. Now, you want me to talk how we met?
Would you like to? Oh, well, I got my own. Would you like to know how we met? Yeah. I'm going to tell you a little bit while he was in Auschwitz and Buchenwald and Großrosen. I did not eat bonbons, you know. I was beaten, I was hungry, I was sick. Back in Skarżysko, I was led to a ammunition factory where we were forced to make bullets for the Nazis. Skarżysko was 3 camps, A, B, and C. I was very lucky that I was in A or B, I don't remember which. In C, there were people falling like flies because they were yellow people. They were contaminated with the powder from the bullets. And they were completely yellow. And they were forced to inhale while they were in the ammunition factory. They were dying of tuberculosis. Very few survived from this sea. They looked like leopards. They had feet. They didn't have shoes. They had old rags wrapped around their legs, and they had tethered claws. They were dying like flies from tuberculosis. In the middle of each camp, even the Germans didn't go there because it was so contaminated. In the middle of each factory were 3 huge trash cans where we had to throw our dead people from night before. This was the most painful thing. You got used to somebody, and she was dead next day or next morning. Every day we labored. Every night we had selection. Right meant to live little longer. Left meant to die, to go to an exterminating camp. I had an idea. I pricked my finger. I found a pin on the ground. I pricked my finger and I squeezed some blood from my finger and I put on my cheeks and my lips. I looked little healthier because I was a living dead. I was so skinny and so sick. Each morning we marched in the middle of the road to the labor. Stumblers were shot and torn apart by vicious dogs. Our nightly meal was a slice of bread and a watery ladle of potato peel soup, and we had to fight for it because people were so hungry. I always added some grass too, so it was a little thicker. It was such a hunger and such a disease that I can't even tell you. We were not allowed to take a bath or anything. Once I stored a little slice of bread in my bosom, and I woke in the morning and I found my fist covered with lice. I shook off the bread and I ate from lice and I ate it. In this camp I had a woman that was Volksdeutsche. She was over the table where I was working. She hated me. I want you to know she was so ugly. She had a pair of feet, probably size 12 or 13. And she hated me. I wonder why, right? And every time she passed me by, she hit me with her fist and kicked me and hit me and hit me. And one day she took me aside and she took her big feet and she kicked me in the stomach. I doubled up, I fell down, and my girlfriend got me because I was so sick after this. And I was again transported to another camp, and every time in the boxcars they were horrible. When I go somewhere and I see boxcars, I always cry or I get the shivers really. This wasn't chance to how. I was starting to get weaker and I spit out blood. I was very, very sick. The lice were vicious. They burrow into my skin. I removed them with a pin. One day they were so bad that I ran to the latrine. Well, Mrs. Pavlovska was her name. If you find her on the street, let me know. Pavlovska. Somebody with two big feet, and I beat her up a little bit, you know. I don't know, she's stronger than I am, but I would beat her up a little bit, like she beat me. I ran to the latrine, and the lice were running all over me, there and back. I washed up the lice because they itched so terrible. On my arrival back home, she got her husband to beat me up. They took me, he was a tall, blonde man, I have him before my eyes. And he put me on the table, and they took whips and beat me to have that. When I got up from this table, I was really almost good for nothing. My girlfriend wiped me off from blood, and I went back. Next day I had to go to work because if they would count and I wouldn't be there, they would kill 50 people for me, of course. And anyway, every day I saw people being hung by neck. Every day they were hanging. When I made a mistake with the bullets, I didn't know how to make bullets. They taught me a little bit, but not enough that I wouldn't make a mistake. When I made a mistake, I had to stand outside in the cold with my hands up until I really dropped. My strength and my vigor continued to fade. Bunk mates were falling, dying left and right. Some of the surviving inmates started to cut out the buttocks from the dead people and ate the flesh in dire grasp of survival. People ate people. This is called, as you know, cannibalism. I had a special angel. I went to the men's barrack. I was very curious. Behind the barbed wires, you know, they were electrocuted, so I couldn't touch them. I saw a young boy that I played in sand puddles with him. And he saw me, he started to cry. He said, "You know me?" I said, "Yes, I remember you." And we both cried. And he said, "Come over tomorrow, I throw you a piece of bread." And I said, thank you, I am so hungry." Next day I was going to the same place for him to throw me a piece of bread. And the Germans spied on us. They took him out from his barrack and me from my barrack, and I had to witness his hanging. I did not want to live any longer. I wanted to die. I wanted to die so badly because why did they kill me? Why? Because I wanted this piece of bread so badly. And I didn't prick my finger. I was crying all the time. I begged, I prayed to God that there's somebody that would shoot me from the back. But today I say, thanks God, that they did not shoot me. January 17, 1945. The Nazis led us to a large room, and we were listening to the planes above our head. I was so terribly weak at this time. I was sitting in the back of the room, and I said, well, now they're going to throw a bomb here and get rid of all of us. They probably did not have time to do that because they would do it gladly. Knowing that they lost the war, they still compelled take people for long walks where they continue to shoot them and shoot them. They wanted to shoot the most they can. Left behind, we cried. Why we are still alive? Why? What for? I told myself I'm alone, I don't have anybody. I didn't believe that my husband was alive, but I hoped so. After several days, we were frightened of our own shadow. We slowly ventured to our timid journey to the city. When I walked out from the concentration camp, I did not walk on the streets by myself for 5 years, you know. I didn't know how to be alone, how to not to be afraid. And luckily I found 2 branches because I couldn't walk anymore. And I was holding onto the branches and crying. Filthy. Didn't take a bath for 3 years. Would you believe it? I fell upon a hospital. This hospital, they gave me something to eat, and I threw away those clothes that were full of lice. And I took a bath for the first time in 3 years, 2.5 years, I think. I smelled like Chanel 5. You believe me? Because when you don't take a bath today for a few days, I think I smell, right? Anyway, I stayed there as long as I found a pair of shoes on the stairs. I was so happy. Those shoes were half my size. I squeezed my foot into it. I have shoes. And they fed us the um, Russians, but they were raping women. They came from front, and they were raping women. I was so frightened of them. And when I felt a little better, I told myself I am going to Krakow, where I was born. I was afraid of my own shadow. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was hungry because I didn't take any food with me, you know. I ate grass, I ate anything I could. And dysentery was terrible. But I came to Krakow and I slept on the street. Can you imagine this town where I was born, where I had such a luxuries with my parents? I was so hungry, I was so cold because it wasn't January, not January, March probably. It's still cold in Poland. And I slept on the streets, in churches, wherever I could. And one day I told myself I'll be brave and I go where my parents, where we lived before war. I knocked on the door and the woman, "What do you want?" I said, "I am so hungry, I am so cold. Please let me sleep on the floor in the hall." We had a long hall. "I will not bother you, I will not do anything to you. Please just put a piece of paper and let me sleep, that I have a roof over my head." I was altogether 23 years old. And she said, "Get out, dirty Jew. Get out, dirty Jew." She did not learn anything from this war, right? Not at all. And I was brave enough. My father taught me that some people are very good. I should not look at her. And I went on a third floor, and a college professor, a poor man, but a wonderful man, he let us in. 3 years we were. And we slept on a single bed with our feet on the chairs. And a registration office was formed for survivors where we could find one another. I went there almost every day in hope that I could, maybe my father came back, because I don't know where he died. Somebody stopped me on the streets and said, "Are you Rosalie Schiff? Are you William Schiff's wife?" I said, "Yes." "Your husband is alive." I fainted. They took me to somebody's house to revive me with smelling sauce. My husband came back a few weeks later. We left Krakow because I did not want to stay with communism. We went to Austria, where my first child was born. And we came to God Bless America. God Bless America. Remember what I said. God Bless America. In 1949, with our small child. He was 3 years old. When I changed the water in my, I poured some water in my car, he said, "Mommy, the car makes pee-pee." And I had 2 more children. Today I have 4 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. How lucky I am, right? 1 great-grandchild, hope for more. What did we learn from that? That hate another person is a crime. People without the heart, people without the conscience can kill, right? It is very, very hard what I'm doing, and I used to cry a lot when I spoke. Today I made myself notes, and I think I'm reading something, you know. that is not even mine, but it's so much easier, otherwise I could not speak. I speak for those children that couldn't even, but they were so little they couldn't even talk for themselves. I speak for them. I speak for the old people, for the grandparents, for the parents, for the siblings, for everybody. Each day that I don't speak is lost from my life. I would like to read something to you. To deny that Holocaust took place is to deny history itself. There are hundreds of thousands of witnesses, including American, British, French and Polish, Soviet, even German soldiers themselves. There are hundreds of thousands of pictures, films, and documentaries, as well as survivors themselves. There is more proof about what happened during the Holocaust than is about what happened during the Civil War or Alamo. Please do not believe those who say Holocaust never happened. Millions of innocent people, children, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers, aunts and uncles, just like you and your family, were murdered without mercy. My husband and I are the witness to the mass murder of thousands of people in our families. There are thousands more like us. Therefore, we know it happened because we were there. It's important for all of us to guard against hate, prejudice, and persecution. So another Holocaust will never happen to anywhere, any people, anywhere. I hope I suffered for everybody. Thank you very much.